Hello, friends, learning partners, fellow educators. Welcome to Connected Planet Learning Tips, Tricks, and Talk. I am Naomi Banta, and today we are going to talk about how we support our struggling students with a mindset change. So let's get into that. Before we get started, I wanted to reiterate that I believe education is both a human right in itself and an indispensable means of realizing all other human rights. It is also the most powerful weapon which we can use to change the world. And that really is the theme that runs through Connected Planet Learning, whether you are enrolled in a curriculum for elementary school or whether you're enrolled in one of the free courses for a learning partner, a virtual teacher, or a educator or administrator. So those are the themes that are really what we're going to be focusing on as we address some of the issues that we're finding in our educational system today. A little bit about me before we get too far. One of my favorite quotes is, "Who dares teach must never cease to learn." And I believe that is absolutely true, especially when we are learning with human beings, little human beings who are individuals. And if we do not learn how each and every single one of them learns, and we're not willing to be taught how they learn, then we cannot be very good educators and helping them acquire the skills that they need. And so professional developments, things like that are very helpful, but we really need to sit down and study each student and figure out, how do I help them learn? And how do I make the skill that they are trying to learn accessible? My experience with the educational system, if you will, starts with homeschooling my own 4 children. You can see them in that picture there. And I believe that they are really my biggest teachers. They have taught me so much about teaching and about how I teach and about how to really figure out how each student learns differently. Every single one of my boys learns differently. And as a learning partner for them, because I was not their teacher, I was the learning partner at home supporting them through their schooling. I had to figure out how each and every one of them learns differently and how I could support them to the best of my ability. So that's what we will be talking about today. I tutored in brick and mortar public schools and private schools. I am a creator and presenter of professional development for elementary and middle school teachers, as well as administrators. I work with administrators to create systems that are multi-tiered systems of support that include co-teaching, and they are focused on inclusion and representation. So all students are included in all classes and that they're represented in all classes, which is my passion. And as we're going through, that is really what our focus is going to be. How do we make sure that all students are included and all students are represented when we are helping them learn or access a skill? I have a master's as an interventionist, and I have dual certification as a K through 6 generalist, as well as a special education teacher, ages 6 through 21. So our big question today is, how can I support and you can fill in that blank, my GT student, my IEP student, my 504 student at home? Or if you're an educator, how do I support the GT student, IEP student, 504 student in my classroom? And I would suggest that it really has to do with a mindset change. And that's not the student's mindset change, that would be our mindset change. And what kind of mindset change am I talking about? Well, typically in a school, we have what we call a multi-tiered system of support, an MTSS system, which is the system that is in place in order to help us figure out how we help students learn. Now, how do we figure out where all of our students are in that continuum, in that tiered pyramid? What we do is we look at their data after beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of year scores, depending on when the student enrolls in school with us. And based on those standardized tests, we look and say, okay, that student is performing at grade level. And we really want for that to be 80 to 85% of the students within that school. And then we might have some kids who are really struggling, or at least show performance-wise on a standardized test that they're struggling. Those would be our tier 2 kids. They would fall within that 10 to 15% that are slightly below grade level. And then we might have some really struggling students, or at least it looks like they're struggling, because based on the standardized test, they perform far, far below grade level. So what do we do about that? What we do is we say, okay, let's get our act together. Let's teach course content to our tier 1 kids. They get all the regular instruction, the regular curriculum in the regular classrooms and all of those things. Those students who are slightly below or who are struggling, let's make sure they get an extra class or they get an intervention of some sort that is online, maybe a computer-based intervention, some direct skill instruction, and hope that we close that gap. And then for those students performing far below grade level, we will then, double up our duty with reteaching and then consider possible alternative placement if necessary. And I am a strong believer in not placing students in alternative placement unless absolutely necessary. And as we continue through this little blurb, you will understand why I am firmly against that. So based on standardized testing, we figure out where students fall, and then that helps us with our instructional approach. What is that student going to get throughout his or her school day? Well, first of all, there was a problem with that. What about students who are GT students? What about students performing above grade level? So when they take a standardized test and they're performing above grade level, what do we do for those students? So if we turn our pyramid on the side and we create a diamond instead, then we can include our GT students. So those would be those students, and not necessarily 5%, but those students who perform above grade level in one skill or more. So like maybe in language arts or maybe in math. And so that then gives us the idea that, okay, we need to refer them for GT so that they get extra extensions, so they can participate in clubs, those kinds of things. So when we look at this continuum, it's great, right? It includes students far below, it includes students somewhere in the middle, it includes students high above, all based on their standardized test scores. But it gives us an idea of what we should do for them instructionally in order to support them. Or does it? And that's where I beg to differ. I would like for us to consider that actually students should not be placed on an MTSS tier, but rather in a continuum of knowledge acquisition, and not based on a standardized test. When we are looking at a continuum of knowledge acquisition, which is what I call it, but it's based on Bloom's taxonomy for depth of knowledge. When we are talking with a student, when we sit down with our students, when we see how they perform on different activities and assignments that we give them in school, we can kind of see where they are in the continuum of learning a skill. Now, not all of our students will start down here with the inability to remember, but this is a way to help us visualize a deepening of knowledge or a deepening of a skill, an understanding of a skill. And so rather than evaluating a student based on their standardized score, sitting down with a student and taking every single skill that they are working on and figuring out where are they in this continuum of deepening their knowledge. And we know that no matter what student it is, you're going to have different skills that are at different levels of knowledge, right? So a student who really has a hard time with math might kind of linger here between the remembering and the inconsistent ability to remember, a process or something like that. So what I know as a teacher is, okay, my student, it's not a grade level thing. What it is a skill thing. And how do I deepen their understanding of mathematics? Maybe they're reading really well, and they can actually write all kinds of really good stories. They can make connections. They can find main ideas. They can use context clues. They can infer. They can do all of those things. So that struggling student in math who may be in the yellow part right here, and I've only colored them that way to kind of help us see what the continuum looks like, but only in the remembering stage of the math, they might be at the evaluating, analyzing stage within a skill that's in language arts. And so when I'm looking at my students, I don't want to just put them all in that, okay, they performed grade level or they performed below grade level, so this is the intervention they're going to get. What I need to do is instead look at each skill and figure out what I need to do to get them to that deeper level of skill acquisition and that deeper level of understanding. And the moment we do that, then our student becomes a whole person, right? We can see exactly where they are skill-wise, what we need to do, how we help them apply. How do we ask critical thinking questions to help them dig deeper into understanding the skill that we're trying to have them acquire? Okay, so that is the mind shift that I am talking about. The other component of that mind shift is we go from being reactive, so reacting to a standardized test score saying, emergency, we need to take an intervention for these kids based on this standardized score, to being proactive. We sit down with that student, figure out where they are skill-wise based on what they're doing in the classroom, and then figure out how we can continue to deepen their knowledge for every single skill they are working on. So I hope that makes sense. While we are doing that, the other thing to keep in mind is, wow, I know there's a lot going on this page, is that even within each of those tiers of the depth of knowledge, the continuum of knowledge acquisition, students were going to fall at incremental steps within each of those tiers, which is super exciting because a student who takes a standardized test, right, and falls far below grade level, they might score very, very low down here. But as we're working with them, we can see that actually they have a deeper knowledge than we understand, and they might be right here on the cusp of really, really gaining more knowledge within that content. Okay, so our students can fall anywhere in here, and I just didn't want to make it too busy, but I only put like 3 tiers within each of those colored tiers. There's so many more. There's an infinite number of steps of deepening growth in understanding a skill. And until we see that as teachers, or until we see that as learning partners, we are not going to be able to support our students the way they need us to support them. And so when we're thinking about how do we support our students, we're going to use the Bloom's taxonomy of vocabulary to help deepen their knowledge. We are going to also evaluate their skills within each subject, especially language arts and math. Those tend to be the ones that we focus on. So when we can see that a student is maybe struggling with a skill within math, yes, we're going to reteach it. We're going to show it to them a different way. We're going to help continue deepen their knowledge in that math skill. But if they are doing really, really well in the English language arts, we want to make sure we give them extensions, just like the GT student is getting. Okay, so I hope that that kind of helps see that the mindset that needs to be changed is going from the reactive, oh, I have data from standard-based testing, and this is where the student falls, to the proactive. I know where the student is. How do I get them from where they are to the deeper and deeper understanding of this skill and a deeper, deeper knowledge acquisition of that skill? So that only happens when it's the teacher or the learning partner that takes a proactive approach to deepening that skill with the student. Okay, so that's what I fully believe. I really hope that that helps explain the mindset change that I'm talking about. If you would like any strategies, specific things like graphic organizers, depth of knowledge questions, all of those resources will be on my website at LearnWorlds. It's Connected Planet Learning at learnworlds.com, and you can just click on the link above here on my YouTube channel. And if you have any questions, You can send me an email at connectedplanetlearning@gmail.com. If you have suggestions of things you would like me to talk about as well, please send those topics there. And keep in mind that Connected Planet Learning, all of the learning partner educator resources, those are free. You just sign up for the course. There's no subscription, nothing like that. And you can go through that course at your own pace to kind of help you hopefully ponder some new ideas, ponder some things that might help you within your classroom, as well as access resources that you can use right away. So that is the goal with Connected Planet Learning, is that as an educator, you don't have to sit down and create those resources. I already have templates. I already have all kinds of things created that you are free to use, tweak it to make your own. But as you're doing that, keep in mind that when we're looking at the student, we want to look at the continuum of knowledge acquisition, not where they fall on the MTSS tier. Have a great day. If you have any questions, please reach out. It was great spending time with you, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye.